One of the big changes between the original version of Final Fantasy XII and what we're going to experience with the Zodiac Age is the addition of the job system. This was introduced with Final Fantasy XII International Zodiac Job System, and compared to the freedom afforded to character progression in the original game, it can seem quite extreme. When you play through the Zodiac Age, you will be asked to choose a job for each character, and once you've picked, you won't be allowed to change that job as you progress through the game. It's locked in, but you will receive a unique license board to develop that's associated with the job you've picked. To alleviate this stress somewhat, when you also play through the Zodiac Age, you will have the chance to pick a second job, but you can only do so once you've unlocked L Board Plus on the license board. Now, to align the system with the Zodiac theme, there are 12 jobs to pick from in the Zodiac Age, and they're a mixture of classic jobs, hybrids, and some jobs with new names that we've perhaps seen before in previous games. We have White Mage, which is the job for Aries, Uhlan, which is the job for Taurus, Machinist, the job for Gemini, Red Battle Mage, the job for Cancer, Knight, the job for Leo, Monk, the job for Virgo, Time Battle Mage, the job for Libra, Foebreaker, the job for Scorpio, Archer, the job for Sagittarius, Black Mage, the job for Capricorn, Bushi, the job for Aquarius, and Shikari, the job for Pisces. Each of these jobs offers something unique, and as it's a fixed decision, the purpose of this video is therefore to talk you through each of the different jobs to help better inform your choices. In each instance, I will therefore provide an overview of how the job works in the context of the Zodiac Age and provide some backstory if it's a new job. I will also offer some suggestions in terms of job combinations and some character preferences, but it is worth stressing that due to the new dual job system they've implemented, the character you assign to a role and the job combinations you choose aren't all that important. They've specifically designed it that way. This video therefore also won't provide you with the ultimate party setup, as at the moment, the general consensus is pretty much that there's no real right or wrong answer here. As with the individual characters and their affinities to certain jobs, there may be certain job combinations that meld better when put together in a party, but it's nowhere near as important as other things like the equipment you have, your skill levels, and your character levels. So yeah, just bear that in mind. Before we head any further, I would like to say that if you enjoy the content that we produce on a regular basis, please do consider supporting us on Patreon. There's a link in the description below if you're interested. Alright, so now that we've got all that stuff out of the way, let's get this job guide for the Zodiac Age started. First up, we're going to take a look at White Mage. This is of course one of the classic Final Fantasy jobs. It debuted in the original Final Fantasy and has historically had a focus on curative magic, with combat often an afterthought. With Final Fantasy XII The Zodiac Age, this changes slightly. Yes, there is still the focus on white magic, but white mages in the Zodiac Age also have access to some green magic. This includes spells such as Faith, Drain, Siphon, and of course, Holy. It means that not only does this job provide some useful assistance when it comes to defensive spellcasting and buffs, but white mages can also do significant damage to undead enemies. The natural weapon class for white mages is rods, which boost MP. However, with the Zodiac Age, an effort has been made to ensure that white mages are somewhat combat ready. Not to the point where they can be called a battle mage, but they can use great swords assuming you gain the appropriate license. You can also unlock battle lore licenses to improve their combat effectiveness should you wish. In terms of combinations with other jobs, white mage can work well with Machinist, Time Battle Mage, or Shikari. Next up we have Uhlan. This is one of the new jobs for Final Fantasy XII The Zodiac Age, and it was created because despite there being spears in the game, there is no jumping. They therefore didn't want to create a Dragoon job as it just wouldn't fit. So they started researching and found that in Poland, there were soldiers once upon a time who, amongst other weapons, carried spears. They were called the Uhlan. This name was later adopted to specific lancer regiments within the Russian, Prussian and Austrian armies. Anyway, as you've probably guessed, Uhlan is very much a damage orientated job, and in this iteration of the game, it's the only job that can use the fabled Zodiac Spear. They do considerable damage, but one drawback is that spears rarely combo. They also can't use shields, and while they do have access to some black and green magic, it's unlikely that you'll be wanting them to use spellcasting on a regular basis. In terms of character preference, I'd say the most effective in this role is Bash due to his high strength attribute and the fact he's got the quickest attack cycle with spears. Uhlan can combo pretty well with either Archer, Bushi or Time Battle Mage, so you have a few options there. Alright, let's move on to Machinist. You could argue that this job first appeared in Final Fantasy IV with Cid the Engineer, but we first saw it with the Machinist designation in Final Fantasy Tactics as a special job. It therefore made perfect sense for it to be included as one of the jobs in the Zodiac Age. For this particular rendition of the job, there's a significant focus around the usage of firearms, but despite this, Machinist is essentially a support class that can do decent damage. It can therefore use time magic such as the rather glorious Haste Gar and Reflect Gar and 2 green magic spells. The job was clearly incorporated to work with Balthier, but the strange thing here is that he has one of the slowest attack cycles when using firearms. Having said that, if you want to go along with continuity and select Balthier as the Machinist, it's not really going to do you any harm, don't worry. As mentioned above, due to its support functions, Machinist combos pretty well with the White Mage job, but it can also work well with Red Battle Mage. Which brings me on to Red Battle Mage. Like White Mage, Red Mage has been around for quite some time in the franchise, appearing as one of the 6 basic jobs in the original Final Fantasy. They are often able to mix melee with spellcasting, but in the Zodiac Age, this has been made a bit more obvious with the Battle Mage designation. Indeed, Red Battle Mages use maces as their primary weapon and can also use greatswords. Now, aside from having the largest selection of magic available, what makes this particular job different from the rest is the fact that it is the only job that has access to arcane magic. Now, there are only a few spells categorized as arcane, and one of them is Ardor, a very strong fire elemental spell that was classified as black magic in the original version of Final Fantasy XII. Other arcane spells in the Zodiac Age are dark, plus its area of effect upgrades, and the classic death spell. In terms of job combinations, you could do a lot worse than pairing Red Battle Mage with Black Mage. You can also pair it up with Archer to boost the damage dealt by Ardor. Both Ash and Penelo are great candidates for Red Battle Mage due to their high MP and high magic attribute. Ash also has mid-range strength attributes too to help with physical damage. However, if you're going to look at that Archer Red Battle Mage combination, Fran is a pretty good shout. Next up we have Knight. This is another pretty classic job from the Final Fantasy franchise, appearing as an upgrade to Warrior in the original game. In the Zodiac Age, Knight is one of the highest damage dealing physical jobs, with access to a large array of swords and greatswords. This includes the Durandal A, an upgraded version of the Durandal, which was introduced in the International Zodiac Job System, and the Tornasol, which in this iteration of the game is exclusive to the Knight job. In addition to its high physical damage output, the Knight job also has access to some potent white magic. This includes Curajar, Regen, Faith, and Bravery, reducing the reliance on other jobs for buffs and last-ditch curing. Due to this, Knight can work quite well in combination with a few other jobs. Time Battle Mage, for example, helps to enhance casting abilities and will help to improve the job's speed. However, it can also work well in combination with Archer, but the one combination you will probably want to strive for here is Knight and Bushi. Monk is the next port of call, and it's probably one of my favourite jobs and has been for quite some time. I was therefore glad to see its inclusion with the International Zodiac Job System, but then again, it wasn't all that surprising as it's another one of the 6 jobs from the original Final Fantasy. In this particular incarnation, monks focus primarily on using their fists to deal damage, but they can also use poles. To help on the curative side, they can also learn a decent amount of white magic such as Raise, Curajar, Protect Gar, and Renew. However, you can only unlock them via quickening and summon licenses. In terms of job combinations, Monk should pair pretty well with Bushi. Monk has the highest strength attribute of any job, which will help to further boost damage for katanas. It might also seem surprising, but Monk also combos quite well with Black Mage by boosting HP, speed, and providing a range of offensive capabilities. Time Battle Mage. This particular job saw its debut in Final Fantasy V along the revamped job system, but while it's not been a common choice in the main Final Fantasy universe since, it has become something of a mainstay in the Ivalice franchise. As you can gather from the name of the job, there is a strong focus on the use of time magic spellcasting. This extends beyond manipulations of time though, encompassing general manipulative spells such as Float, Berserk, Gravity, and Bleed, and techniques such as Shear and Addle. They aren't able to do much in terms of offensive spellcasting, but they are able to use crossbows and some higher tier swords, hence Battle Mage as opposed to Mage. As we've already mentioned, the Time Battle Mage can help to complement a lot of melee damage jobs pretty well, such as Knight, Monk, and Uhlan, while it can also create a decent combination with White Mage. Next is Foebreaker. This melee job is completely new to the Final Fantasy franchise, although it does share quite a few similarities with the traditional warrior class. It features no magical abilities at all, but offers some serious physical damage to try and balance that out. There's no cool story for how or why this job was added to the game, but the official description labels Foebreakers as warriors who use mighty weapons to tear their foes asunder. Those mighty weapons are axes and hammers, but they can also use hand bombs. To help give them some uniqueness, Scorpion Tail, the strongest hammer in Final Fantasy XII, is now an exclusive weapon for the Foebreaker job. However, this time around there's also the Scorpion Tail F, which has 12% more attack power, adds an evasive bonus, and has an increased combo rate. The Foebreaker job can combo pretty well with Shikari and Bushi due to the damage benefits and armor combinations. If you're looking at doing Foebreaker and Shikari, this would suit Varn pretty well. Moving on, we have Archer. No, not the cartoon series. Although they have now overlapped into the main franchise and are one of the disciplines of war in Final Fantasy XIV, archers were exclusive to Ivalice for a long time. They are quite similar to rangers, using bows as their main weapons, but they are much less orientated around physical damage and instead have more status attacks. They can therefore use the most techniques out of all the jobs featured in the Zodiac Age. To try and keep things somewhat realistic though, due to the nature of the job, in certain weapon editions physical damage output is reduced. And compared to other physical jobs, they also can't augment their damage as well. However, that's not to say it's a bad job, as there is a significant range advantage against other close combat melee jobs. In terms of combinations, they can benefit from the high strength that comes with the Knight and Uhlan jobs, and as mentioned, they can also create a decent combo with Red Battle Mage, and Fran fits the bill perfectly here. Black Mage! Alongside the White Mage, Black Mage is one of the most recognisable jobs in the Final Fantasy franchise. It debuted in the original Final Fantasy and hasn't looked back since. For the Zodiac Age, there's, as you'd expect, a significant focus on offensive magic, especially as they can target multiple enemies at once. It makes Black Mages a very potent choice for any party setup. However, they aren't really able to use any melee weapons effectively, and they have very low HP. If you link up with Monk, you're able to get the best of both worlds. Strong offensive magic and strong physical offense. It also pairs well with Red Battle Mage, and as a Red Battle Mage, Penelo is a pretty good shout here due to her high magic and MP. Our penultimate job is Bushi. For this particular job, despite using a katana as its primary weapon, Hiroyuki Ito chose not to go down the samurai route. He wanted to choose unorthodox names for some of the traditional jobs to encourage people to research new things. He chose Mononoth for the original Japanese release, which after researching as Ito requested, is apparently an ancient term meaning warrior, but this has now been changed to Bushi for the Zodiac Age, which is written using the same kanji. Despite the job having no magical abilities, there is a mystical essence surrounding the job, and magic power does affect damage. It's why the armor for the Bushi is mystic, as it can help to significantly boost the damage output for the job. It therefore syncs up pretty well with Monk, but when paired with Shikari, it can create a rather potent combination, as you can wear the Genji gloves, use the Yagyu blade, and wear the black robes. Last but not least, we have Shikari, which was previously known as Hunter. This was included as Ito had previously watched a documentary on a hunting group from Hokkaido called the Matagi. In the documentary, they spoke about how the culture of the Matagi was close to disappearing, and he didn't want to see that. He picked Shikari because the Shikari was the leader of the Matagi, and he hoped that again, people would find out more about what a Shikari was and perhaps learn about the history of the Matagi as a result. In terms of the actual game, Shikari are able to use daggers and ninja swords, but they can also use guns. They are a fast melee class with limited magic ability, only gaining access to Protect Gar and Shell Gar, however they can work well in combination with other jobs. As I mentioned probably about a minute ago, Shikari combines well with the Bushi job, but also with Foebreaker and White Mage. In terms of character preference, it suits Varn pretty well, as damage for both weapon types is denoted by character strength and speed, two areas where Varn excels more than any other character. So yeah, that's the 12 jobs that will be available in the Zodiac Age. Hopefully that's given you an idea about each of the jobs and given you some thoughts about potential characters and job combinations. If you want to try and map everything out, I'd recommend using this useful spreadsheet that was created by Reddit user Zodiac Soldier. You can select 2 jobs for each character and it will update the sheet, allowing you to gain a better understanding about how you'll need to progress each of them out based on that selection. So which jobs are you most excited to try out? Let us know in the comments below, and feel free to share your plans, setups and job combinations. And if you'd like to support our channel, please head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/FFunion. These awesome folks have already done so, so why not join them? Alright, thanks for watching guys, this is Daryl signing out. I will see you next time, and I hope you're really enjoying the Zodiac Age.